An ant climbs a plant. Nothing about the scene appears unusual at first. It leaves the forest floor, ascends a nearby stem, and eventually stops beneath a leaf. Then it bites down onto the vegetation and remains there. Hours pass. The ant does not move. Days later, it is dead. Soon after, a fungal stalk begins growing from its body. For centuries, this process occurred unnoticed in forests around the world. Today, it has become one of the most fascinating examples of parasite-host interactions ever discovered. The organism responsible is a group of fungi known as Ophiocordyceps, often referred to as zombie ant fungi. The nickname is memorable. The reality is even more interesting. Like many parasites, the fungus depends on another organism to complete its life cycle. Infection begins when fungal spores come into contact with a suitable host. Once inside the ant's body, the fungus begins to grow, spreading through tissues and drawing nutrients from its host. At this stage, the ant may appear completely normal. It continues performing many of its usual activities while the fungus develops internally. Eventually, however, something changes. The infected ant abandons its normal routines and begins behaving differently. Rather than remaining within established foraging trails, it wanders away from the colony. It climbs vegetation and moves to a location that appears unusually specific. In many documented cases, the ant stops on the underside of a leaf and bites firmly into a vein or edge. Researchers often refer to this as the death grip. The ant then dies attached to the vegetation. From the fungus's perspective, the location is ideal. Elevated positions provide favorable temperature, humidity, and airflow conditions. Once the host dies, the fungus continues growing. A stalk eventually emerges from the body and releases spores into the environment below, where new ants may become infected. The entire sequence appears remarkably precise. Naturally, this raises an obvious question. How does the fungus accomplish it? For years, the popular explanation was simple. The fungus takes over the ant's brain. The reality appears to be more complicated. Modern research has revealed that the fungus does not merely replace the ant's decision-making system, like a person taking control of a machine. Instead, it interacts with the host in ways scientists are still working to understand. Researchers have discovered extensive fungal growth throughout the ant's body, particularly around muscle tissues. Chemical compounds produced by the fungus may influence the ant's nervous system and behavior, but the exact mechanisms remain an active area of study. In other words, scientists know the fungus alters behavior. They are still uncovering precisely how it does so. This uncertainty is important because it highlights a common feature of science. The most interesting discoveries often generate new questions rather than final answers. What researchers do know is that the relationship between fungus and host is the result of a long evolutionary history. The fungus did not suddenly learn how to manipulate ant behavior. Over millions of years, natural selection favored fungal traits that improved reproduction. Likewise, ants evolved defenses against infection. The result is an ongoing evolutionary arms race between parasite and host. Some ant colonies have even developed social behaviors that help reduce the spread of infection. Workers may remove infected individuals from the colony or avoid areas where fungal spores are abundant. The fungus evolves, the ants evolve. Neither side remains static. The story becomes even more remarkable when viewed at the ecosystem level. In some tropical forests, zombie ant fungi help regulate insect populations. They become part of a larger network of interactions involving predators, prey, parasites, decomposers, plants, and microorganisms. The infected ant is not an isolated curiosity. It is one small component of a much larger ecological system. And despite the dramatic nickname, the fungus is not unique. Nature contains countless examples of parasites altering the behavior of their hosts. Certain worms influence fish. Some parasites affect crustaceans. Others alter the behavior of mammals. The zombie ant fungus is simply one of the most visible and best studied examples. What makes it so compelling is that it challenges our assumptions about behavior itself. We often think of behavior as something controlled entirely by an individual organism. The zombie ant fungus reminds us that biology can be far more complicated. The actions we observe are not always shaped by a single species acting alone. Sometimes they emerge from interactions between multiple organisms, each pursuing its own evolutionary interests. In the forests where Ophiocordyceps lives, an ant climbs a plant and bites down on a leaf. To the casual observer, it looks like a simple action. To evolutionary biology, it is the visible outcome of a relationship millions of years in the making. And one of the most extraordinary examples of nature's ability to shape behavior in ways that seem almost impossible.